What's going on, everybody? Kalipis Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, I'm going to be giving you some of my favorite and least favorite things about the OnePlus Nord N20 to help you decide whether or not it's the right phone for you. Now, if you want to learn more about this phone's specs and features, I will be linking to several other videos about it in the description, as well as some information about pricing and availability. But with that being said, let's get started. So my first pro for the OnePlus Nord N20 is the design. When it comes to aesthetics, materials, and just general build quality, this phone is definitely one of the best in this price range. It has a really nice modern look with stuff like thin bezels, a hole punch front-facing camera that's not too distracting, and a pretty original looking camera module. So again, I really do like the look of it, and not only that, but the actual build quality is really solid as well. The buttons feel pretty sturdy, and the phone in general has some good weight to it, so despite being more on the affordable end, it doesn't feel cheap at all. And as far as materials go, despite this phone being pretty much all plastic except the display, it's definitely a much higher quality plastic than you typically find in your average entry-level phone. So in general, if you're looking for an affordable phone but you want to make sure it has good quality, looks nice, and doesn't feel cheap, then this phone is going to be a great choice. My second pro for the OnePlus Nord N20 is the processor. Now, if you're looking for a faster 5G phone and you don't want to spend $1,400 on a flagship phone, then this phone is really going to be a great option. Now, with the OnePlus Nord N20 we're getting 6GB of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 695 5G processor. So again, considering this is really just an entry-level phone retailing for around $300-ish depending on where you're getting it, I did find the performance to be pretty impressive. So whether you're playing games, browsing the web, using social media, or just using the phone as a phone, you can expect pretty much everything to run fast and smoothly. Now, that being said, your mileage may vary, and if you're doing something really high-end like video editing with large files, or maybe playing a game like Fortnite that just takes up a lot of processing power, then of course you're not going to get near the performance of something like a Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra, for example. But again, for just regular everyday use, this phone does perform really well, especially considering it's one of the more affordable options out there. Now, in case you're wondering, I did run a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on this phone, and here are the scores. So again, definitely real impressive performance here. But that being said, if you're not too familiar with this test, this might not mean a whole lot to you, so what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then comparing your results to these, because that's really the only way you're going to tell for sure whether or not this phone will be an upgrade for you. But again, in general, compared to other phones in the $300 to $500 price range, or even any phone that's not a flagship phone for that matter, in terms of overall performance, this phone is definitely one of the better options out there. My third pro for the OnePlus Nord N20 is the display. Now, one thing about this phone that particularly stood out to me is that it has an AMOLED display, making it one of the most affordable phones in 2022 that has this kind of display technology. With an AMOLED display, we're going to get bolder and more vibrant colors, and also better brightness and viewing angles. So if you're outside in the sun, for example, you're going to be able to see your phone much easier than you would with an LCD. In addition to this, we also got a 1080p resolution with a 409 ppi, so we're getting a nice sharp image here, which is going to be great for consuming content. And the size and dimensions are pretty good as well. At 6.43 inches, while still not being the largest display out there, it's definitely large enough to give you a good experience. And with the 20:9 aspect ratio, we're getting a taller and more narrow form factor. So if you're doing something in landscape mode, you're going to get a much more immersive experience. And if you're reading or using social media, you'll be able to fit more content on the frame without having to scroll as much. So in general, this phone's going to be a great choice if you're consuming a lot of content and you need something with a good display. My fourth pro for the OnePlus Nord N20 is the storage. With this phone, we're getting 128GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, and no matter what you're doing with your phone, whether you're a power user, a light user, or something in between, this is going to be a great amount of storage for most people. Even if you don't have a lot of stuff on your phone, it's always better to have more storage than you think you need, because nowadays, with apps, files, and even just the system in general taking up more and more space, it's a lot better to have a bunch of storage you never use than it is to run out. And finally, my fifth pro for the OnePlus Nord N20 is the battery. Now, this phone has a 4500 mAh battery that supports 33-watt fast charging. Now, normally I wouldn't really consider this that much of a pro. It's not bad per se, but there are plenty of phones in this price range and even below that have 5000 mAh batteries. And considering that, a 4500 mAh battery in and of itself isn't really that impressive. But that being said, in my experience, this phone does have really good battery life, and no matter what you're using it for, it's most likely going to get you through the day and then some. Now, aside from the battery life itself, the real impressive thing about this battery is actually the fast charging. Seeing a phone supporting 33-watt fast charging is definitely notable, especially in this price range where they go as weak as 10. Now, that being said, on one hand, if you keep your phone plugged in all day anyway, this really isn't going to matter. But in any other situation, provided you're using a strong enough fast charger, you're definitely going to notice a difference. And what's even better here is that this phone actually comes with a fast charger, which is not something you see every day. So in general, while this phone doesn't have the largest battery out there, again, it does get pretty good battery life. And if you're in a situation where you don't always have a lot of time to charge up your phone, the 33 watt fast charging honestly is going to make enough of a difference to make up for not having a 5000 milliamp hour battery. But now that we've gone over some of the good things about this phone, let's talk about some of the drawbacks. So my first con for the OnePlus Nord N20 is the lack of an ultra-wide camera. Now, an ultra-wide camera is a really nice feature to have, and in this day and age, pretty much every phone in this price range is going to have one. And it's too bad because even this phone's predecessor, the OnePlus Nord N10 5G, did have an ultra-wide camera. And for that matter, plenty of phones half the price of this one also do. But unfortunately, despite having a pretty good camera setup otherwise, the OnePlus Nord N20 is missing the ultra-wide camera. Now that being said, it's probably not going to matter a whole lot to everyone because not everyone uses an ultra-wide camera. So if you are taking regular photos with more normal features like portrait mode for example, then this phone will have a perfectly fine camera setup for you. But again, if you're taking photos with those wider angles and you want to fit more into the frame, then keep in mind there are plenty of other phones in this price range that do have ultra-wide cameras. My second con for the OnePlus Nord N20 is the software. Now for whatever reason, this phone is still on Android 11, which is definitely a huge drawback compared to other manufacturers like Samsung for example, that's currently giving their mid-range phones at least 5 years of support. Now why exactly OnePlus decided to give this phone Android 11 when we're almost to Android 13, I really couldn't say. And hopefully at some point in the future, we're at least going to get one major update with this phone, if not two. But clearly here, if you're really concerned with getting the latest version of Android as it comes out, then you're definitely going to want to go for a different phone that's better with updates. Now that being said, on the other hand, technically this phone is pretty well optimized for the software. In Android 11, while clearly not being the newest Android, still isn't bad in and of itself. So if you're not too concerned with having the latest version of Android and you just want something that works, then this is probably not going to be a huge deal for you. My third con for the OnePlus Nord N20 is there's no stereo audio. Now I will say, this phone's audio quality despite only using one speaker is actually pretty decent as you're about to see, and plenty of people who just have a bunch of headphones and Bluetooth speakers and stuff like that never even use their phone speaker to begin with, and if you're one of those people, this is really not going to matter at all. But every now and then I feel like most of us eventually end up using the phone speaker for one thing or another, whether you're watching a video, playing a game, or even just listening to music, and maybe you don't feel like using your headphones or a speaker. No matter what the situation is, having good quality phone speakers is definitely a nice thing, and when you're consuming any kind of content, stereo audio is going to give you a much more immersive experience. And the really unfortunate thing about this phone not having stereo audio is that its predecessor, the OnePlus Nord N10 5G, did have stereo audio, so it's too bad that they took it away with this phone. But that being said, everyone has their own standard of what sounds good and what doesn't, and when it comes to this kind of thing, I really like to let the quality speak for itself. So take a look at this sample. So again, like I said before, I do think the audio quality is at least decent, and if you're just listening to music while you have your phone on the counter or something, then you're probably not even going to notice. But if you're playing a game or watching a video and you really want that immersive experience, then it is going to feel a little off. My fourth con for the OnePlus Nord N20 is the carrier compatibility. Now, originally when this phone was launched, it was only available through T-Mobile and Metro by T-Mobile, but more recently they did release a factory unlocked version as well. Now this is all well and good, but the factory unlocked version still does seem to have some issues. Like for example, with Verizon, it's not even usable at all, and with AT&T, you can only use it on the 4G network. So despite one of the major selling points of this phone being that it's an affordable 5G phone, if you have AT&T, you can't even use that feature. Now keep in mind, when it comes to this phone, things are actually changing pretty quickly, so by the time you're watching this video, this information could be completely different, so definitely double check. But as of right now, until things change, if they ever do, unless you have T-Mobile or Metro, then I would probably avoid this phone. And finally, my fifth con for the OnePlus Nord N20 is that it can't record 4K videos. This is yet another feature the OnePlus Nord N10 5G had that they took away with this phone, which I really never understood. I feel like new phones are supposed to have more features, not less. But unfortunately with OnePlus, that doesn't seem to be the way things are going. Now don't get me wrong, the video quality itself here is actually pretty good. The details look really sharp and nice. As you can see here, it does handle low light pretty well. And if you're recording casual videos, maybe for social media or something like that, that, then you're going to be perfectly fine. In addition to this, for a phone in this price range, the audio recording quality is actually really impressive. Like I said before, I like to let the quality of this kind of thing really speak for itself, so take a look at this video sample. So here's a test video with the OnePlus Nord N20 We are recording in 1080p right now, which is the max quality. Also keep in mind what the audio sounds like. So as you could see there, the audio quality was actually pretty usable if you're doing something like vlogging, social media, something like that, where you might not need studio quality audio per se, but you still want it to be pretty good. In that kind of situation, I do think this phone will definitely get the job done. And again, the image itself does look really good. So really the only thing stopping me from considering this a top tier mid-range phone as far as video recording goes is that you can't record 4K videos, which again, this phone's predecessor could, so it's really too bad. So on one hand, if you're recording more casual videos for social media, for example, or you just don't really care about the resolution, then this phone will absolutely get the job done. But if you're recording a lot of higher quality videos, especially stuff that you might want to put on a TV, because remember in 2022, pretty much every TV is a 4K TV, in that kind of situation, you might want to be able to record in 4K, and if that's the case, there are definitely other phones in this price range that can. But those were my pros and cons for the OnePlus Nord N20. In general, despite some drawbacks, I do think this is a really good phone, and it definitely provides a lot of value for the money. Now, if you want to learn more about this phone, whether it's specs or features, or just how to use it better, definitely check out my other videos about it on the channel, which I will be linking to in the video description. And I will also be linking to some information about pricing and availability, because this is always changing. But this concludes my pros and cons video for the OnePlus Nord N20. If you enjoyed it and found it helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Khalipa's Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.